The endless highway stretched before Ethan Reeves like a ribbon of faded dreams. His electric semi-truck hummed softly beneath him, the only companion he'd had for the last 1,000 miles. The year 2057 had brought many changes to America: automated shipping lanes, climate-controlled roadways, and of course, the revelation that humans weren't alone in the universe. But out here in the forgotten stretches of Nevada, it might as well have been the previous century. Ethan's eyes burned from 20 hours of driving. The dashboard clock read 3:17 a.m., and the fuel cell indicator blinked an insistent orange. With a sigh, he eased the truck toward an exit where a single establishment glowed like a fatting star against the desert night. Crossroads Charging Station. The place was eerily quiet when he pulled in. A flickering holographic sign advertised, "Fast charge human food, no cuestiones." Exactly the kind of backwater stop that catered to those who preferred privacy over amenities. Ethan connected the charging cable and stretched, his tall frame casting a long shadow in the station's blue-white lighting. That's when he saw her. She stood at the edge of the light's reach, half hidden behind a weather-beaten vending machine. Even from a distance, she was clearly not human. Her skin had a luminescent quality, seeming to shift between pale blue and silver depending on how the light struck her. Large, almond-shaped eyes reflected the station lights like twin moons. But what caught Ethan's attention were the restraints circling her wrists and ankles, metallic bands etched with swirling patterns that pulsed with a soft, cyan glow. They didn't look like any tech he'd seen before. "Hey," he called softly, approaching with hands visible. "You okay?" She flinched but didn't flee. As he drew closer, he could see her more clearly, humanoid but distinctly alien, with delicate features and hair that moved slightly despite the still air, as if suspended in liquid. Her clothing was simple but made of material that seemed to ripple with colors that shouldn't exist. "Please," she whispered, her voice accompanied by a subtle electronic echo that suggested a translation device. "I cannot remove them." She extended her wrists, revealing angry welts beneath the gleaming bands. Without thinking, Ethan reached for the multi-tool he always carried, a habit from years spent fixing his own rig when no help was available. The device unfurled into a compact laser cutter, standard equipment for truckers who sometimes needed to clear debris. "Hold still," he murmured, adjusting the beam to its finest setting. The alien woman trembled but held her position as he carefully sliced through the first band. The metal parted with surprising ease, falling to the concrete with a musical chime. Her sharp intake of breath made him pause. "Should I stop?" She shook her head, tears forming at the corners of her luminous eyes. "Continue, please." One by one, he removed the restraints. As the final band fell away, she collapsed against him, her body racked with sobs. Instinctively, he wrapped his arms around her, surprised by how warm she felt against his chest. "That was my betrothal chain," she gasped between ragged breaths. "You have undone my binding." Confusion washed over Ethan. "I'm sorry, I thought." "In my culture," she interrupted, raising her face to his, "removing these means you have claimed me as your mate." Her golden eyes locked onto his, wide and earnest. Ethan's mouth went dry. Before he could formulate a response, the ground beneath them vibrated with the approach of a massive vehicle. The station's lights flickered as a sleek black transport, hovering inches above the asphalt, glided into view. Its design was unmistakably not of Earth origin. The alien woman's fingers dug into his arms. "They will take me back," she whispered, terror evident in every syllable. "And now, they will take you too." The transport's doors slid open, revealing three tall figures in iridescent armor that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. They moved with predatory grace, scanning the area with visor-covered faces. "My name is Vila," she whispered urgently. "If we separate, they will kill you without question. Our bond has already begun." Ethan's mind raced through his options, none of them good. The truck was charged enough for a quick getaway, but outrunning an alien spacecraft seemed unlikely. Fighting was suicide. "Trust me," he said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Taking her hand, he began edging toward his truck. "I'm Ethan, and I'm not letting anyone take you anywhere you don't want to go." As the hunters spotted them, Ethan made his choice. Sometimes in life, you stand at a crossroads, and the direction you choose changes everything. With her hand in his, he chose a path that would take them both far beyond the lonely highway he'd traveled for so long. "Get in." Ethan yanked open the passenger door of his truck, practically lifting Vila inside before vaulting around to the driver's side. His fingers flew over the control panel, disconnecting the charging cable with a sharp electronic chirp. The hunters were advancing now, drawing strange, curved weapons that hummed with latent energy. "They will disable your vehicle," Vila warned, her voice trembling as she buckled herself in. Her translator seemed to be adapting to his language patterns, the electronic echo diminishing with each word. Ethan jammed his thumb against the ignition sensor, and the truck's hydrogen cells whined to life. Let them try. What the hunters didn't know was that Ethan's rig wasn't standard issue. Years of solo, long-haul runs through increasingly lawless territories had taught him to prepare for trouble. The custom electromagnetic shielding that protected his cargo from scanning would hopefully provide some defense against alien tech too. The truck lurched forward just as a bolt of crackling energy struck where they had been parked. Ethan didn't slow down to assess the damage, instead gunning the engine toward the highway on-ramp. In the rearview display, he saw the black transport rise smoothly into the air, pivoting to follow. "Who are they?" he asked, eyes darting between the road ahead and the aerial pursuit behind them. Vila clutched the dashboard as the truck swerved onto the highway. "Enforcers sent by my betrothed. Was to be joined to Commander Krell of the Astrani Defense Force." A shudder ran through her luminescent frame. "It was a political arrangement. I would have been little more than a trophy, a symbol of alliance between two powerful houses." The desert highway stretched before them, empty in the pre-dawn darkness. Ethan pushed the acceleration to maximum, the truck's electric motors humming with strain. "So you ran," he said, understanding in his voice. It wasn't a question. She nodded, her flowing hair rippling with subtle bioluminescent patterns that reflected her emotional state. "The binding bracelets were designed to track me and ensure the arrangement couldn't be broken." Her fingers brushed her wrists where the bands had been, until someone from another species broke them, claiming me instead. The implications hung heavy in the cab. Ethan swallowed hard, keeping his eyes fixed on the road. "I didn't mean to." "I know," she interrupted softly, "but it may be the only thing that saves us both. Krell cannot simply kill you now. The bonding process has begun." As if on cue, something strange happened. A warm sensation spread from Ethan's chest outward, like tendrils of heat flowing through his veins. He gasped, momentarily losing focus on the road. "You feel it too," Vila whispered, her golden eyes wide. "The chemical changes have started." "What chemical changes?" Ethan demanded, fighting to keep his attention on driving as the warm sensation intensified pleasantly. Before she could answer, the night sky behind them lit up with a searing blue light. The transport was gaining, preparing to fire again. "They're going to try to disable the engine," Vila warned. "Your truck's protection won't hold against sustained attacks." Ethan scanned the terrain ahead, spotting a narrow canyon jutting off from the main highway. It was an old service road, unmarked on most modern maps, exactly the kind of detour he'd memorized over years of avoiding automated shipping routes and their associated tolls. "Hold on," he muttered, yanking the wheel hard. The truck skidded onto the unmarked road, dust and gravel spraying behind them as they plunged into the darkness of the canyon. For several tense minutes, they bounced along the rough terrain, the truck's suspension systems working overtime. The canyon walls rose higher around them, cutting off visual tracking from above. Eventually, they emerged into a box canyon, a dead end of sorts, but with a narrow cave opening that might just fit the truck. Ethan killed the lights and guided the vehicle into the shadowy recess. The electromagnetic shielding would hopefully mask their energy signature. He cut the engine and they sat in darkness, listening to the faint hum of the alien transport passing overhead. "Do you think they'll find us?" Vila whispered, her skin's natural glow providing the only illumination in the cab. In the soft blue light, Ethan could see details he'd missed before, the delicate ridge of cartilage that framed her face, the subtle gill-like structures at her neck that seemed to flutter with each breath. "Not immediately," he replied, trying to ignore the strange attraction he felt growing toward her alien features. Was it the bonding she'd mentioned, or just adrenaline and circumstances throwing them together? "But we can't stay here forever." Vila's hand found his in the darkness, her touch sending another wave of that pleasant warmth through his system. "There are others like me on your planet. Refugees, observers. We've been here for generations. If we can reach them, they might help us." "Where?" Ethan asked, trying to focus despite the intoxicating sensation of her skin against his. A settlement in the mountains, 300 kilometers west. My people call it Haven. Ethan nodded, already planning the route in his mind. They'd need to stick to back roads, avoid checkpoints. We'll rest here until daybreak, then move when their aerial surveillance is hampered by civilian traffic. As if in response to his words, Vila suddenly gasped, doubling over. Her skin flashed with pulses of bright blue light. "What's wrong?" Ethan reached for her, alarmed. "The bond," she managed through clenched teeth. "Without the proper ceremonial completion, the physiological changes are intense." She looked up at him, her golden eyes now ringed with an electric blue. "And it's affecting you too. Your pupils are dilating, your body temperature rising." She was right. Ethan could feel himself burning up, a strange mixture of fever and desire coursing through him. His vision seemed sharper, colors more vivid. "What's happening to us?" he asked hoarsely. Vila's breathing steadied as the painful moment passed. "My species forms deep biological connections with our mates, hormonal, neurological, even genetic exchange on a subtle level. The process has begun, but without proper guidance, it's chaotic." Her expression turned vulnerable. "I never thought my first bonding would be like this, with a stranger, hiding in a cave on an alien world." Despite everything, the danger, the confusion, the biological changes he didn't understand, Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness. He reached out, brushing a strand of glowing hair from her face. "We'll figure this out," he promised. "Get some rest now. Tomorrow we head for Haven." As Vila curled up in the reclined passenger seat, her luminescence dimming as she drifted toward sleep, Ethan kept watch. Outside, distant lights swept across the canyon as their pursuers continued searching. Commander Krell, whoever he was, clearly wasn't giving up easily. Ethan's hand unconsciously went to his chest, where the warmth of their growing bond pulsed like a second heartbeat. Whatever was happening between them, whatever changes were reshaping his human physiology, there was no turning back now. The mountain community of Haven blended so perfectly with its surroundings that Ethan would have driven right past if not for Vila's guidance. Nestled among the pines at 7,000 feet elevation, the collection of structures seemed to grow organically from the landscape, their surfaces shifting color to match the dappled forest light. "How many?" he asked quietly as they approached on foot, having hidden his truck under camouflage netting in a ravine half a mile back. "Perhaps 200, Vila replied, her steps more confident now that they were near her people. During their 2-day journey through back roads and wilderness, the painful episodes of their unguided bonding had intensified. Twice they'd been forced to stop while Vila's body convulsed with blue light, her skin temperature fluctuating wildly. Each time, Ethan had held her through the episodes, and each time the connection between them had deepened. Now, as they approached the settlement, he could almost sense her emotions, a strange mixture of relief, apprehension, and something more intimate that made his pulse quicken. A slender figure emerged from between the trees, moving with the same fluid grace as Vila. This Astrani was older, with silver-white hair that floated around her head like a corona and skin that had faded to a pale lavender. "I am Elder Myra," she announced without preamble, her translator producing flawless English. Her gaze fixed on Vila's bare wrists, then shifted to Ethan with undisguised curiosity. "You've brought a bonded human to our sanctuary." Vila inclined her head respectfully. "The circumstances were unplanned. We seek refuge from Krell's enforcers." The elder's expression darkened. "Commander Krell has already contacted us. His transport entered Earth's atmosphere with official diplomatic clearance. They are searching systematically." Ethan stepped forward. "We didn't ask for this situation, but I'm not letting them take her." Elder Myra studied him, her ancient eyes seeming to peer directly into his thoughts. "The bond changes are already advanced in you. Interesting." She turned, gesturing for them to follow. "Come, we have little time." The interior of the settlement revealed itself as they passed through a shimmering barrier, a technological cloak that hid the true nature of Haven from outside observers. Within, the structures were clearly alien, built from the same color-shifting material as Astrani clothing. Dozens of the luminescent beings moved about, some indistinguishable from Vila, others displaying variations in height, coloration, and physical features. Ethan drew stares, some curious, some hostile. "Not many humans visit here, I take it." "You are the first," Elder Myra replied simply, leading them to a domed structure at the center of the settlement. Inside, a circular chamber contained a pool of gently glowing liquid in its center, surrounded by curved seating. Rest, refresh yourselves, I must consult with the council. When she had gone, Vila approached the pool, dipping her fingers into the luminous fluid. Restorative bath, she explained, the tension visibly draining from her shoulders. It will help stabilize the bonding process, at least temporarily. Ethan watched as she slipped out of her outer garments, revealing a form both alien and achingly beautiful. Her skin's bioluminescence patterned across her body in swirling designs that reminded him of the Milky Way viewed from Earth's darkest places. She slid into the pool with a sigh of relief, the liquid clinging to her like a second skin. Join me, she invited, her golden eyes meeting his. It will help ease your symptoms too. Hesitantly, Ethan removed his dust-covered clothes. The past 2 days had left him little opportunity for personal care, and the promise of relief from the increasingly intense bonding symptoms was too tempting to resist. As he slipped into the pool beside her, the liquid embraced him like warm silk, seeming to penetrate his skin and soothe the cellular changes happening within. Better, Vila asked, moving closer to him in the glowing water. Much, he admitted, surprised at how natural it felt to be here with her. Vila, I need to understand, what happens now with us? He gestured between them. This bond, is it permanent? She was quiet for a moment, the patterns on her skin shifting to deeper blues. Yes, she finally said, but it's not complete yet, and that's dangerous for both of us. The physiological changes could become unstable without proper consummation. The word hung between them, laden with meaning. Ethan's breath caught as she moved closer still, her luminescent form gliding through the restorative liquid until they were mere inches apart. I never expected this, she whispered, one delicate hand rising to touch his face. To be bound to a human, but I feel it growing stronger each day, the connection, the heightened awareness of you. I feel it too, Ethan admitted. In the glowing pool, he could see subtle changes to his own skin, a faint luminescence beginning to develop beneath the surface, matching the patterns of her bioluminescence. Is this normal? No, she said, wonder in her voice. The bond usually doesn't manifest physically in non-astrani. You're adapting somehow. Her fingers traced the faint patterns emerging on his chest, sending waves of pleasure through his system. Without conscious thought, Ethan leaned forward, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that started gently but quickly blazed into something more urgent. The contact sent cascades of light rippling across both their skins, the liquid around them beginning to swirl with responding patterns. Their bodies came together in the pool, alien and human forms finding unexpected harmony. Each touch intensified the connection, each caress drawing them deeper into the bond. As they merged physically, the neurological connection between them flared open, allowing Ethan fleeting glimpses into her consciousness, her fear and loneliness giving way to something new, something hopeful. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily, their skin patterns synchronized in pulsing waves of blue-white light. The bond is stabilizing, Vila murmured, resting her head against his chest. It's rare for first joining to be so compatible. Ethan held her close, marveling at how right it felt. Maybe that's why your elder seemed so interested. We might be the first human Astrani pair. Not the first, came Elder Myra's voice from the chamber entrance. They hadn't heard her return, but perhaps the most significant. They quickly moved apart in the pool, Ethan feeling a very human embarrassment despite the alien setting. The council has reached a decision, the elder continued, her expression grave. Commander Krell arrives at Haven within the hour. His claim on Vila precedes yours by Astrani law. You can't just hand her over, Ethan objected, rising from the pool. The liquid clung to him momentarily before sliding away, leaving him dry. Peace, human, Elder Myra raised a hand. The situation is more complex than you understand. Vila is not merely any Astrani, she is the daughter of our High Counselor. Her arranged joining with Commander Krell would have secured a peace treaty between two factions of our kind who have been at odds for generations. Vila emerged from the pool, her expression stricken. I didn't tell you everything, Ethan. This bond between us, it might have political consequences I never intended. Before Ethan could respond, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. Outside, shouts of alarm rose as a massive transport ship descended through the protective barrier, its black hull gleaming menacingly in the afternoon sun. "He's here," Vila whispered, instinctively moving closer to Ethan. "And he won't accept what's happened between us." Elder Myra's ancient eyes moved between them, seeing the synchronized light patterns in their skin. "What's done is done. The bond is nearly complete," she gestured to their clothes. "Dress quickly. Perhaps there is still a path forward that serves all interests if you are brave enough to walk it." As they hurriedly dressed, Ethan caught Vila's hand, feeling the pulse of their connection thrumming between them. "No matter what happens, I'm not letting you go," he promised. "Not now, not ever." The conviction in his voice surprised even him. 2 days ago, she had been a stranger. Now she was woven into the very fabric of his being, alien, unexpected, and more precious than anything he had ever known. Commander Krell stood nearly 7 feet tall, his Astrani features sharper and more predatory than the Haven community's. His skin did not glow with the gentle luminescence of Vila's people, but instead shimmered with a metallic bronze quality. The 4 enforcers flanking him were similarly imposing, their armor integrated with weapons systems that hummed with lethal potential. "This violation of treaty will not stand," Krell's voice boomed through the council chamber where Haven's elders had gathered. His translator was set to intimidate, the bass frequencies making the air vibrate. His gaze fixed on Ethan with undisguised contempt. "The human has no standing in our affairs." "The bond is registered and recognized," Elder Myra countered calmly. "Our biometric readings confirm it has progressed to near completion." Krell's skin flashed with angry orange patterns. "A primitive mammal cannot comprehend the significance of what he has done." He strode forward, looming over Ethan. "Do you understand, human? She was to unite 2 great houses to prevent a war that could consume worlds." Ethan refused to be intimidated, standing his ground even as every instinct screamed danger. "Maybe she deserves a choice in her own future." "Choice?" Krell's laugh was like breaking glass. "Our civilization doesn't function on your primitive individualism. We serve greater purposes." He turned to Vila, who stood with quiet dignity beside Ethan. "You know your duty, daughter of the High Council." "I know what was planned for me," she replied, her voice steady despite the fear Ethan could feel pulsing through their bond. "But plans change, Commander. The universe intervened." Krell's hand shot out suddenly, gripping Vila's arm. "The bond can be severed. It will be painful, perhaps permanently damaging, but it can be done." Without thinking, Ethan lunged forward, breaking Krell's hold on Vila. The moment his hand made contact with the commander's metallic skin, something extraordinary happened. A surge of energy erupted between them, throwing Krell backward several feet. Ethan stood frozen, staring at his hands, which now glowed with the same patterns as Vila's but intensified tenfold. The council chamber erupted in murmurs of shock. Elder Myra stepped forward, her eyes wide. "The bond has synchronized your bioenergetic fields. The human is manifesting Astrani defensive capabilities." Krell recovered, his expression murderous. "This abomination cannot be permitted to continue." He gestured to his enforcers. "Take them both, separate containment. We return to the flagship immediately." Despite Ethan's newfound abilities and the Haven Elders' protests, they were overwhelmed by superior technology. Ethan's last glimpse of Vila was her frightened face as they were dragged in opposite directions, their reaching hands not quite touching. The cell aboard Krell's ship was designed to dampen Astrani bioenergetic fields. For a human, it should have been merely confining. But as Ethan paced the small space, the glowing patterns beneath his skin fluctuated wildly, responding to his agitation and to Vila's distant presence somewhere else on the massive vessel. Hours passed. The changes in his body accelerated without Vila's stabilizing influence. His vision shifted, allowing him to see spectrums beyond human perception. His hearing sharpened until he could detect the subtle vibrations of the ship's engines through solid walls. But most significantly, he could feel Vila's emotions, her fear, her determination, and underneath it all, her love for him, still forming but undeniably real. When the cell door finally slid open, it wasn't Krell who entered but an Astrani female in scientific attire. Her skin was a pale green, her movements precise and clinical as she scanned him with a handheld device. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your human DNA is incorporating Astrani sequences at an unprecedented rate." "Where is Vila?" Ethan demanded. The scientist continued her scans. "Being prepared for the severance procedure. Commander Krell is most displeased." "The severance, will it hurt her?" The scientist paused, her professional detachment slipping momentarily. It will be extremely painful. Few survive with their faculties intact. That is why it is rarely done. Anger surged through Ethan, and with it, the strange new energy in his cells. The glowing patterns on his skin brightened intensely. The commander underestimates the bond's progression in you, the scientist noted, backing toward the door. Perhaps deliberately. Why are you telling me this? She hesitated. Not all Astrani support Commander Krell's faction. Some of us believe evolution requires new bonds, new combinations. With that cryptic statement, she left, the door sealing behind her. Alone again, Ethan closed his eyes, focusing on the connection to Vila. Following it wasn't like tracking a physical signal, but more like surrendering to an emotional current. Through the bond, he could sense her location, several decks above. More importantly, he could sense something else. The unfamiliar energy surging through his transformed cells seemed to interact with the ship's systems. When he concentrated, he could feel the electromagnetic fields, the power conduits, the security protocols. Ethan placed his glowing hand against the cell door's control panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, remarkably, the alien technology responded to him as if he were Astrani, the door sliding open with a soft hiss. The corridor outside was empty. Trusting his new senses, Ethan moved swiftly through the ship, avoiding patrols with an intuition that seemed to anticipate their movements. The bond pulled him upward, toward a section of the ship that hummed with concentrated energy. He found Vila strapped to a medical apparatus, unconscious but alive. Two technicians were preparing equipment that pulsed with ominous purpose. Before they could react to his presence, Ethan channeled the strange energy within him, sending out an electromagnetic pulse that disabled the equipment and knocked the technicians unconscious. Freeing Vila from her restraints, he cradled her face, relieved when her golden eyes fluttered open. "Ethan," she whispered, disoriented, "how did you?" "Later," he promised, helping her to her feet. "We need to move." But as they turned toward the exit, Commander Krell blocked their path, his massive frame filling the doorway. "Impressive adaptation, human," he acknowledged coldly, "but ultimately futile." "Let us go, Krell," Ethan said, positioning himself protectively in front of Vila. "This bonding happened for a reason." "The reason is her treachery," Krell spat. "She fled her responsibility, and you were merely convenient." Vila stepped forward, her strength returning. "That's not true. The bond would never have progressed this far if we weren't genuinely compatible." "Compatibility is irrelevant. Your joining was to prevent a war that will now consume countless lives." Ethan felt Vila's shock through their connection. "Is that true?" he asked quietly. "The alliance was important," she admitted. "But Krell isn't telling you everything. His faction wants to accelerate our integration with Earth, to establish open dominance rather than peaceful coexistence. My house has advocated for continued observation, gradual exchange." Krell's skin flashed dangerously. "Your naive approach would leave us vulnerable. The humans are advancing too quickly. Soon they will pose a threat." A realization struck Ethan. "That's why my adaptation frightens you. It suggests our species could integrate in ways you didn't predict." "Enough talk," Krell growled, drawing a weapon. "The severance will proceed." In that moment, Ethan felt something extraordinary, not just his connection to Vila, but through her, a faint resonance with all Astrani. Their biology, their technology, their very essence was now partially his own. Acting on pure instinct, he reached out not with his hand but with his consciousness, interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Alarms blared, emergency lights flashed. "What are you doing?" Krell demanded, his weapon wavering. "Showing you another path," Ethan replied, his voice eerily calm as the ship's communication systems activated, broadcasting their confrontation to the waiting Astrani Council back on Earth, and he suspected, to observers much farther away. "You speak of war and dominance." The High Council chamber aboard the Astrani flagship Luminara was unlike anything Ethan had ever imagined. The vast dome overhead displayed what appeared to be real-time images of distant star systems, while the circular floor beneath them shimmered with patterns that seemed to reflect the emotional state of everyone present. Around them, 12 Astrani counselors observed from elevated platforms, their luminescence subdued to formal, dignified patterns. At the center of it all stood Vila's father, High Counselor Talon, his resemblance to his daughter unmistakable in the fine structure of his features, though his skin shimmered with a deeper, more intense azure that spoke of his authority and age. "Never," he began, his translator producing a voice of measured gravity, "in 3,000 years of observing Earth have we witnessed such a phenomenon." His gaze moved between Vila and Ethan, lingering on the synchronized patterns glowing beneath their skin. A bond of such depth with a non-Astrani should be biologically impossible. Commander Krell, standing rigidly nearby, seized the opportunity. "Precisely why it should be severed, High Counselor. This aberration threatens the natural order, not to mention our carefully formulated alliance." "Silence," Talon commanded without raising his voice. The effect was immediate. Krell stiffened but said nothing more. The High Counselor approached Ethan, studying him with ancient eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. "You have changed, human. The bond has altered your cellular structure, your neural pathways. You are becoming something neither fully human nor fully Astrani." "I can feel it," Ethan acknowledged, meeting the powerful alien's gaze without flinching. "But I don't think it's an aberration. I think it's evolution." A murmur rippled through the council. Vila stepped closer to Ethan, her hand finding his. "Father, what if this is precisely what our people have been searching for? A true symbiosis with another sentient species?" Talon's expression remained unreadable. The old prophecies speak of convergence, a time when the Astrani would find their cosmic companions. Many dismissed them as primitive mythology. He turned to Elder Myra, who stood quietly observing. "Your community has lived among humans the longest. What say you, Elder?" Myra stepped forward, her ancient face serene. "I have watched Earth for 3 centuries, High Counselor. In that time I have seen humanity grow from primitive warmongers to beings capable of great compassion and innovation. Their adaptability is unmatched among the species we have encountered." She gestured to Ethan and Vila. "This bond speaks to possibilities we never imagined. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our approach to Earth." "Impossible," Krell burst out, unable to contain himself. "The security protocols are based on outdated assessments," Vila countered fiercely. "You've lived in orbital stations, Krell, studying humans from a distance. You've never walked among them, shared their lives as the Haven community has." Ethan felt a surge of pride through their bond, along with something else, a vision from Vila's mind of a future neither of them had articulated yet. He seized on it, understanding its importance. "High Counselor," he addressed Talon directly, "you were planning to use Vila and Krell's union as a symbol of alliance. What if there's a better symbol?" He raised his and Vila's joined hands, their synchronized bioluminescence flaring bright. "What if the first official diplomatic couple between our worlds wasn't a political arrangement, but a genuine bond?" The council chamber fell silent. Talon's ancient eyes narrowed, considering. "You propose to formalize this bond, to become an ambassador between our peoples?" "I do," Ethan replied without hesitation. "My transformation gives me unique insight into both worlds now. And Vila," he turned to her, his expression softening, "if she's willing, could help introduce your people to ours in a way that builds trust rather than fear." Vila's luminescence pulsed with emotion. "I am willing," she said softly, then with more conviction. "I choose this path, Father, not because I was commanded, but because I believe in it." Talon was silent for a long moment, the patterns on the chamber floor swirling in complex configurations as he deliberated. Finally, he addressed the council. "For millennia, we have observed Earth from the shadows. We have debated intervention, conquest, and isolation. Perhaps it is time for a fourth option, genuine cooperation." He raised his hand, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing Earth rotating slowly. "The human species stands at a technological tipping point. Within decades, they will either destroy themselves or achieve breakthroughs that will bring them to the stars, to us, ready or not." His gaze returned to Ethan and Vila. "Perhaps this unexpected bond is precisely the bridge we need." Commander Krell stepped forward, his metallic features tight with restraint. "High Counselor, with respect, this changes nothing about the security concerns of my faction. The humans remain unpredictable, potentially dangerous." "As are all sentient species, Commander," Talon replied evenly. "Including our own." He gestured, and another holographic display appeared, statistics, projections, resource analyses. "Your faction's approach would require sustained military presence around Earth for centuries. The resource drain would be immense, the ethical implications problematic." He turned back to Ethan and Vila. A gradual, diplomatic introduction, beginning with a living example of harmony between our species, offers an alternative worth exploring. The council chamber erupted in discussion, some counselors objecting, others expressing cautious support. Through it all, Ethan felt Vila's presence in his mind, her thoughts intertwining with his. Whatever happened, they were connected now in ways that transcended politics and even biology. Finally, Talon raised his hand for silence. The council will deliberate formally, but as High Counselor and as Vila's father, I recognize the bond between them. He fixed Krell with a stern gaze. The betrothal is dissolved, Commander. Your service is valued, but this path is closed. Krell's skin flashed with angry patterns, but he bowed stiffly. As you command, High Counselor. Talon turned back to Ethan and Vila. If you truly wish to be the bridge between our worlds, the path will not be easy. Prejudice exists on both sides. Fear of the unknown is a universal trait. We understand, Vila replied, her voice firm. Ethan nodded. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy. 3 months later, Ethan stood beside Vila on a hillside overlooking the expanded Haven settlement. What had once been a hidden community was now a small but growing diplomatic outpost, the first openly acknowledged Astrani presence on Earth. The integration had begun cautiously. Selected human officials had been introduced to the Astrani representatives, scientific and cultural exchanges had commenced, and plans were being drafted for more extensive contact in the coming years. Not everyone was pleased with the development. Protests had erupted in some cities, security concerns had been raised by military officials, and religious leaders were still grappling with the theological implications. But for every voice of fear, there seemed to be two of curiosity and hope. Your transformation has stabilized, Vila noted, her fingers tracing the now permanent luminescent patterns visible beneath Ethan's skin when they were alone together. In public, he could suppress the glow, another unexpected adaptation. The Earth doctor said my cellular structure is about 15% Astrani now, he replied, pulling her closer. Enough to give me some interesting abilities, but not enough to stop me from being human. She smiled, resting her head against his chest. The perfect ambassador. Below them, a small group of human scientists was being escorted through the settlement by Astrani guides. Cultural exchange programs were set to begin the following month. It was all happening faster than either of them had expected. Do you regret it? Ethan asked suddenly, giving up your position for this? Vila looked up at him, her golden eyes reflecting the sunset. My position? I am the first Astrani human diplomatic liaison in history. I think my father knew exactly what he was doing. She smiled mischievously. The old prophecies didn't just speak of convergence, they spoke of a royal daughter who would bridge worlds. Ethan laughed. So I was manipulated by ancient alien prophecies. Is that what you're telling me? Perhaps, she teased, her luminescence pulsing with affection. Or perhaps the universe simply has a way of bringing together what belongs together. As the first stars appeared above them, Ethan marveled at how much had changed in just a few months. From a lonely highway to a new frontier, all because he'd stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere and helped a stranger in need. Their bond hummed between them, stronger than ever. Through it, he sensed what lay ahead, challenges certainly, but also possibilities neither of their species had imagined before. Together, they stood at the threshold of a new era, not just for themselves, but for two worlds that had always been destined to meet among the stars. Come on, Vila said, tugging him toward the path that led back to their shared dwelling, a structure that blended human comfort with Astrani technology. The Earth delegation arrives tomorrow. We should rest. But rest was the furthest thing from Ethan's mind as they walked hand in hand under the stars, their synchronized bioluminescence creating patterns of light that seemed to echo the constellations above. Some chains, he had learned, were meant to be broken, and some bonds, the ones formed by choice and love, were stronger than any restraint could ever be. As Vila drew him into their home and into her arms, Ethan knew with absolute certainty that no matter what challenges awaited them as ambassadors between two worlds, they would face them together, human and Astrani, bound by a connection that transcended the very stars themselves.